On in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for Thursday, December 15th. We are breaking down all of the Week 15 action, getting into all the fantasy questions, lineups, betting angles for every game as the fantasy football playoffs kick off across most leagues. Let's get it rolling. Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. Thanks for joining us here on this Thursday. This podcast presented by our friends over at No House Advantage. Mario, I say we just dive right in. I'm feeling conversational, but I'm feeling very football driven on this Thursday.
I don't want to talk to you, so I agree.
I don't want to talk to me either. Anyway, so the Seahawks are playing the 49ers this evening. Have you heard this? Have you seen this? Have you heard about this? And the 49ers are 3-point favorites on the road in this spot. We saw what happened earlier this season where the Niners kind of just crushed the Seahawks. That was, I believe, right after the Seahawks had that emotional win against the Broncos. I think a lot of us took a lot at, or we were like, oh, wow, they beat the Broncos. That might mean something.
Broncos are good.
Yeah. And the Seahawks come back to earth in that game, but then they've mostly outperformed expectations the rest of the way here. But obviously things haven't been going quite as well of late as we head into the stretch run of the season. Whereas the Niners, despite all of the quarterback injuries, they're on their third quarterback. I think Trey Lance got injured in that game against the Seahawks, if memory serves. And they've just kept on rolling along. They've acquired Christian McCaffrey, of course, before the trade deadline. And, they just smoked the Buccaneers. I don't think that means a ton, but it's not nothing, especially when you have Brock Purdy. And, so here we are. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it's tough to think through the events of the prior game. They're a long ways in the past by now, so it doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot for projecting this one. The Seahawks blowing it against the Panthers is pretty confusing, but it might be it could be just one of those things that could happen in any given week kind of thing. The so random you can't put a number on it kind of thing, but the sort of outcome that does happen nonetheless from time to time. It doesn't necessarily mean anything when it does. And also you have to wonder if maybe the Seahawks were guilty a little bit of maybe like looking ahead, not even a full week, as it were, 4 days. So if they at all were psychologically, emotionally distracted with this game, this much more important theoretically game than the stupid Panthers, it is possible that they lost to the Panthers in a way that just like doesn't actually reflect much about them. So if you just look at the way that the Seahawks blew it against the Panthers, it'd be easy to look at this game and just say like, oh, well, clearly the 49ers are going to kill them. But particularly with Pete Carroll, it's like things aren't usually that simple when you try to do the talent versus talent kind of question. Like he has a way of getting guys to just play over their heads from time to time, and he has a way of coming up with just coaching insights, gaming schematic insights, play calling insights that a lot of coaches can't. Coaches that are supposedly smarter than him. So it's difficult for me to count out the Seahawks, even though you should be able to count out a team when they blow it against a team as bad as the Panthers at home last week. I just think, I don't know, if I had to pick a side, I'd pick the 49ers basically because I don't think Seattle will be able to run. I think San Francisco will be able to run. And when you have a good defense in particular on the side that can run, that's about all I really need to hear about because I think they're going to move the ball, and I think they're going to be able to give the other side some trouble when they try to move the ball, or at least reduce the other side to a mode of moving the ball where they need their passes to land at the very least, and that I think can bring some bad luck, especially on the road, especially with a rookie, nearly undrafted quarterback. So I would pick the 49ers to win if I had to, but I wouldn't really want to specifically bet against the Seahawks if at all possible.
No, that definitely makes sense. The Seahawks are a feisty bunch, if nothing else, and they still got dangerous receivers.
Including Marquise Goodwin. So they really do have pretty good personnel at receiver and tight end. And if the 49ers force Geno Smith to kind of air it out by not allowing him to run, he might hold his own surprisingly well, especially if you just looked at his box score against the Panthers.
I, I'm a big Marquise Goodwin fan.
Me
I'm
too.
always pleased when he's doing well. That guy's he's been through the ringer. So always good to see him having some success. On the Niners side, we've had so many wrenches thrown at us as far as how to analyze them from a fantasy perspective this year. The team just looks so different than it did in Week 1. What do you think the shape of this offense looks like? Who stands to benefit while Debo Samuel is sidelined?
Yeah, you got a few candidates. I mean, George Kittle hasn't done much lately, but I feel like that's one of those things that isn't going to last forever. I think in Seattle last year, that was when he had that 180-yard, two touchdown game. So you can't look at Kittle's most recent history as the sole basis of projecting what happens next. It's like he's been volatile, even though he's been generally very good, some range of very good throughout his whole career. There's been ups and downs, and every time people kind of drive themselves crazy trying to sort through the signal and find some sort of meaning in it. But I think he's at least as good of a candidate as Brandon Ayuk to step up and claim whatever slack there might be from Debo. I mean, we know Kittle is badly overqualified for his usage, and if sometimes it's as simple as a guy as good as Debo getting out of the way to make the math really work easily for Kittle. So uh, I think he could really pop back up here in a big way. Not to dismiss Ayuk. I mean, he's obviously the receiver who would have to step up. Juwan Jennings is going to play a little more. Ray McLeod's going to play a little more. But yeah, I like. I guess for like DFS, especially tournament kind of thinking, I prefer Kittle as the answer just because I think people might be underestimating him a little bit at this point. But yeah, otherwise it's McCaffrey. I would say McCaffrey, but it's like I figured he was kind of in for like a 15, 18 carry, 4 to 6 to 7 catch kind of game either way. So it's kind of hard for me to imagine McCaffrey getting an escalated version of that. If the escalated version is 25 carries and 8 catches, that's more a box score I think they want to save for the playoffs for McCaffrey. It's obviously a very important divisional game, but I don't know if they want to go to quite that level of urgency, almost desperation. So even if there's like more usage to be taken by the backfield, I think there's a chance that Jordan Mason does a little bit because he's done a good job. And if there's work that they need doing in the backfield, it seems like he's ready to take it and do well with it. So yeah, I would say Kittle, but yeah, Ayuk and McCaffrey, of course, could benefit too.
Okay, all right. Music to my ears when it comes to Kittle. Sorry, folks. It sounds like our leaf blower people have an awesome sense of timing.
John lives in
Once again,
a leaf nearby a leaf factory, and yeah, it's all over the place. They're constantly doing industrial grade leaf cleaning in his 10 feet from his window.
yep, and we love it, and that's why we pay way too much for rent. It's good stuff. All right, I think we've unpacked this Thursday game to its fullest. Let's go ahead, move on over to Saturday. We got 3 games. Let's kick things off with the Vikings versus the Colts. Vikings 4-point favorites in this one. Mario, why don't you lead us off? I'll jump back in here in a second once the Leafmen have done their bidding.
Yeah. So the Colts, of course, are awful. There's basically nothing redeeming about them. They got some good players, but as a team, as a theory, they are just repulsive. And I think we're going to keep getting mostly repulsive results out of them, even though the Vikings are also. The Vikings are a fake good team. The Colts are obviously not even a fake good team. They're just a very patently awful one. So frauds or not, I'd be kind of disappointed. Even as a skeptic, I'd feel a little let down by the Vikings if they really blow this game. The 4.5, 5 points is a different question, I suppose. You could imagine the Vikings playing very ugly in a way that makes the game close, even if they don't blow it. That's easier to imagine them than them just losing it outright. But yeah, you really can't skip the possibility because it's like Kirk Cousins has been playing legitimately awful all year. At least he's been producing awful. I can't claim to know specifically if it's like something to do with him or maybe just something that we could blame on O'Connell for having maybe a schematic tweak that just didn't really suit Cousins' skill set. They clearly lost something from the last, basically every year of Cousins' career compared to this one. He's worse, and certainly the past couple of years, there's a sharp drop off when none of the personnel changed, except for mid-season adding Hawkinson, and it's like that. There's no reason for something to get that bad if the player didn't get worse themselves, and it right now is tough to tell which it is. So I don't trust the Vikings. I feel like they're capable of kind of blowing it when they have even a theoretical advantage, and I know they've won a lot of games for me to be saying that, but I just say it because it's to emphasize that much more just how actually lucky they have been. And if they get a little bit of bad luck against any team, even the Colts, I feel like that's enough to take them down. So I'm worried for the Vikings, even though if they should just sell out against the run, every single drive, sell out against the run. If Matt Ryan completes some passes to Michael Pittman, who cares? Those are 12-yard catches. No one's going to lose on 12-yard catches. So 80-yard touchdown runs will end you. Playing 40 minutes on defense will end you,
Right.
especially if Kirk Cousins is the quarterback playing like he has this year.
No, definitely. And, I was looking into the numbers a little bit. It looks like the Vikings are giving up the most passing yards per game in the league right now, which definitely checks out. You've definitely mentioned them. Even when the Vikings were on their hot streak earlier this year, it's like, well, it's coming back to earth. Like that
They a
secondary
little bit
not holding up.
Sorry, I was just gonna say they a little bit encourage that by being good against the run. Like if they were worse against the run, their pass defense might look a little better than it does. But yeah, they if it were like any other offense, almost other than the Colts, I'd be more concerned for that. It's like if Matt Ryan wants to if they try to throw the ball 40 times with Matt Ryan, what are they accepting? Like 6 sacks and 3 fumbles? Like it's
That's a
just
good point.
to get Matt Ryan to the volume point where he would really be capitalizing on this vulnerability with the Vikings, it's like you would need both sides to play out of character for like at least 2 quarters, and that stuff definitely happens. It's just it's the 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 kind of stuff.
No, definitely. So well said there. It just doesn't feel like Indianapolis, even with the soft matchup at hand, just going to be able to take advantage of it as far as the passing game goes. Although I'll say for, building a Saturday lineup, it'll make me interested in someone like an Alec Pierce. But
He's
beyond
not a
that,
bad pick, and I guess I gotta double check the Vikings depth chart, but like part of what has made their pass defense get worse, or I know it wasn't great to start with, but it got worse when Cam Dantzler got hurt, and not just him. The fourth rounder from Missouri, Andrew Booth, has been hurt pretty much all year.
mm,
I'm sure he would have been able to help them. So they're down to guys that I just have never heard of, like really, and like Duke Shelley. So it's really bad at corner for them, and Alec Pierce can definitely beat any of the non-Peterson corners.
no, exactly. So keep an eye there. And then what's going on with Dalvin Cook right now? Is this a matchup where he can get back on track a little bit? It's been quite some time since he had a Dalvin Cook game. Really, it was against the Bills back in Week 10 that he had
Right.
over 15 fantasy points here, and he only has one game in double digits over his last four since then. So any way that he gets things going a little bit here against Indianapolis.
Yeah, there's a way. It's just I think the burden of the decline of the passing game in Minnesota has largely fallen on Dalvin Cook, and he was largely, the main, not the main catalyst, but the Kirk Cousins production that we became accustomed to, the Kirk Cousins in Minnesota as we knew it, was always or almost always in the context of Dalvin Cook is playing for the Vikings and the defense has to care about that. And so it's like you look at Cousins' numbers, you have to remember that like that's kind of Cook's production too. Like those looks wouldn't happen without Dalvin Cook on the field. And with Cousins not doing his part anymore to take advantage of those setups, it's like you're getting almost twice as much incentive to sell out against the run. And when you do sell out against the run and you have some amount of success, it's less likely than in previous years that the Vikings passing game will, jump in and make up the difference. So you're getting more cases than in the past where I think Dalvin Cook's the same guy. I think he's still playing great. But these situations where defense is sold out to stop him in the past are A, having more luck from the defense's perspective, obviously, and B, uh, there's drives ending faster. There's fewer points to be had in general, and that's like another kind of compounding limitation on Cook. But the deal with Cook is still that he is who he is, which is the kind of runner who, if you don't do everything correctly as a defense, if you don't do everything almost perfect as a defense, actually, it only takes one or two plays for him to kind of reverse the game's flow on you and kind of just hand you a loss. So, and it's kind of like Jonathan Taylor in a little bit too on the other side, where it's like you you being a better defense isn't necessarily going to save you. Like you need to uh you need to actually account for all of your gaps all the time, because if you don't play at a pretty much near perfect or generally fundamentally sound level, then playing it'll come down more to like just the talent differential basically, and no one has the talent that Taylor Cook do. So it's like you could see them go uh against a defense that sells out to stop them, holds them to like 70 yards on 20 carries. That 180-yarder can happen if just like one guy is squared up one-on-one. Like you can't let the one-on-one situations happen with Taylor and Cook. It's like in other cases your guy makes the tackle, but with them they can make the big play. And so when you are, to me, like setting up that one-on-one is normally like a pretty good indicator of defensive scheming. It just doesn't get you the same return against running backs like these. And sorry, this is a long-winded way of saying I don't think bad matchups really matter much for Taylor and Cook, because it's you would like the easy running. Yes, that's preferable to grinding it out big play kind of games. But as long as he's getting near that 20 carry mark, and not that he needs the 20 carries, he can go off on 1 through 10 too. But particularly when he's getting into a little bit of the rhythm and the defense is catching their breath a little bit, that's when players like Taylor and Cook and only running backs like Taylor and Cook and Chubb and that very exclusive company, they in those situations become about as dangerous as any player on offense. It's like a defense is just really in danger there. So the Colts, their run defense is tough. As long as they have Buckner or Stewart on the field, they're going to be a tough run defense. But Cook only needs that one-on-one matchup, and not that it's guaranteed to happen. Indeed, it's probably less likely to happen against the Colts than most other defenses. But um, you still, I think, consider Cook like an inevitable player for the most part. And if it's not this week, then it's next week. But it's like never far away.
Okay, so that I think preempted the question I was going to ask, because I definitely saw some chatter on this on Twitter this week, and obviously that's a place where a lot of junk takes come out. But I saw the W word associated with Dalvin Cook, or at least the question being posed: is he washed? We think no.
It's yeah. I mean, like, I don't know what you can say about the
N-
state of football commentary, be it on Twitter or wherever in particular. It's like, yeah, sometimes it's just like tilt posting, where it's like,
yeah,
oh, I picked Dalvin Cook, my life is ruined, he's old.
yeah, no, exactly. That's 100% where it's coming from. So maybe he's not having his best season, but I think
I
to
tilt
put the
post
W on
too,
him.
I'm not above tilt posting, but like,
No.
don't say things like, the guy who just stomped all over the Bills defense is actually old and slow now.
Yeah, have a little perspective, have a little patience. Before we get on over to the next Saturday game, John Jennings, our guy, has been patiently waiting for us to answer this one. It's pretty interesting. Pacheco or James Conner this week? James Conner, he's been playing well, but at the same time, no Kyler Murray, obviously, and you go to Denver. Tough defense, even still. I know that the Chiefs got him a bit last week, but obviously the Cardinals are going to be able to pull the same stuff. Whereas the Chiefs with Pacheco, they have the Texans probably going to be able to kind of put it in neutral for a decent bit of this game. I don't think that it's going to go quite the way that the Cowboys Texans game did a week ago. So I think game script really does favor Pacheco, and matchup, of course, favors Pacheco here.
Yeah, definitely not going to hate on Connor or anything. I think he's a good player, but Pacheco's got um, easy matchup. The team context could not really be much more favorable for him, so I'd probably go with Pacheco. And I don't know, I'd feel a little anxious about it, but you have a good problem to have at the very least.
No, definitely. I don't think there will end up being a ton of separation between the two. There's obviously fairly low floors for either. If Denver just shuts down Arizona, then that the Connor play gets pretty problematic. If Andy Reid starts farting around with the running back rotation again, then things get dicey for Pacheco. But I mean, Pacheco, the way he runs, kind of like what you were saying about Dalvin Cook, and he doesn't need the 20 carries. 1 through 10, he could end up getting it done. Like that. That's the type of setup that we're looking at against the Texans.
Yeah, and Pacheco, because he had like if Dalvin Cook had Mahomes at quarterback, he'd average like 6.5 yards a carry. It's basically just be a cannonball, like just run at the space that Mahomes gets conceded to him by the defense. And Pacheco is like in this particular matchup anyway, it's like Dalvin Cook playing on easy mode every time.
Yeah, Be a Cannonball, the sequel to Bruce Lee's Be Water. So
I gotta say, John, the only thing I know about kung fu movies is from other movies that are not kung fu. In this case, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So
yeah,
I'll believe you on that reference, but I have no idea what it means.
that's such a great movie, and really one of the best scenes from that movie. The guy who played Bruce Lee, incredible, so funny. Anywho, let's move on. Jamie wants to know: do we think T. Higgins is going to play? Obviously, wearing some scar tissue from last weekend, myself included, on that one.
Let's see. So
He was limited Wednesday. That's all we
yeah,
know.
he's been dealing with this for a few weeks, and I don't know what was going on last week. Like it could have been he had like a setback either in the game before or in practice leading up to last week, and the Bengals just didn't acknowledge it, or it could have come down to maybe just him tweaking it in warmups. In which case, like if that's what it was, I don't know why that would happen one week and not the one before it. But I'm sorry, I just don't think we can actually answer the question because we need spies in Cincinnati and we don't have them. But conventionally, when a player's a limited practice participant beginning on Wednesday, and as long as they don't have a setback in practice, they almost always play on Sunday. And we're dealing with the margins of almost always is, and not that this is something to do with Higgins specifically, but it's like league wide. I feel like the injury reporting protocol has kind of been hacked away at. Like teams are testing what they can omit and kind of like mislead about without getting in trouble from the league. And I think the answer is it's like teams can basically say whatever they want to, and the league is not prepared to enforce any standard otherwise. So not that I have any good solution for that. It's like an honor system kind of thing, but I really wish we would get more transparency from the teams. It's just that is very directly against the interests of those teams, so I don't know why they would go along with it.
Yeah, what would be nice as those in the fantasy and betting world, but that, like you said, they're going to push to the edge of what's acceptable by league standards. And then one more from Jamie before we move on. Instead of Garrett Wilson, it's Elijah Moore. So Elijah Moore, DPJ or Pacheco? I think it's Pacheco.
Yeah, Pacheco or Wilson, but Pacheco, I think.
Okay, and
Actually, I
what?
don't even know, man. It's a coin flip between Wilson and Pacheco for me. I don't know. They're both really
But
good.
Wilson, great, but he mistyped, or he entered the wrong Jets receiver. He meant Elijah Moore.
Oh well, Pacheco, yeah.
Yeah, Moore got more involved last week, which is good. Ran a lot of
We just
routes.
need Mike LaFleur to get put on a one of those like a crate on a ship that takes him to a different part of the world, and then Elijah Moore will really break out.
I thought you were going to say they need to put him on like the liver diet, get him more teed up so he can be a man and
Oh, all
throw
beef
the
all
ball
the
to him. Yeah,
time,
yeah.
all awful and beef all the time.
just
No
just
water. If you
drinking
need to,
tallow on the
if you need to wash
sidelines.
it down, just throw some salt in there and swish it around.
It's like yeah, instead of chewing gum, chew bacon from The Simpsons. All right, let's move on over. Other Saturday game. We were just talking about DPJ, or he was just brought up. Let's dive in there. We got the Ravens going up to Cleveland to face the Browns. Browns 2.5 or 3-point favorites, depending on where you're looking. Tyler Huntley has been practicing. I don't know if he's officially cleared concussion protocol just yet, but I think things are trending in that direction. So that's how I've been processing it this week. I think we're at least a week away from Lamar Jackson being back. If it was Anthony Brown, starting, it'd be a very, very tough road for the Ravens to do anything in this spot. I was a little bit surprised that he made an NFL roster, to be frank, but Tyler Huntley can do enough. And I was very encouraged last week by J.K. Dobbins and how well he ran against the Steelers, who knew that the Ravens were going to be running the ball and still, was able to have the level of success that he did. We still haven't fully seen Gus Edwards crush it yet. Kenyon Drake can have his little fits and starts here and there. Justice Hill can't really hang on to the ball. But I think really, as far as fantasy goes, it's Dobbins, and I mean, you're kind of forced starting Andrews, but I don't know how many teams that drafted Andrews are in a great playoff position at this point. Unfortunately, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the advance rate is on that or whatever, but it's definitely a good setup for Andrews if he's ever playing, but especially when the quarterback just can't really throw to the receivers. And I know they're getting Demarcus Robinson a little bit, but I love how just futile the Demarcus Robinson role is. It's he's getting these catches because defenses are selling out to spam Mark Andrews and the quarterback rush threat and the running back rush threat. And even the Duvernay tricks in the middle of the field from which he's not eligible to do anything else. He's got to be in that slot decoy thing to free up playmakers like Demarcus Robinson. And it's why do you think that why do you think they're leaving backup corners one-on-one with Robinson on the sideline over and over and over and over? It's because they don't care. And Greg Roman sees that. He's like, oh, good play. It's no, bad play. You're losing. You lose all the time for no reason, and it's just ridiculous. And I think the Ravens offense is just total garbage, and it's dependent on that, kind of 40-yard heroics from Dobbins. Cleveland run defense could get that kind of 40-yard play out of pretty much any NFL running back. Certainly Dobbins, if he's 85% or better, he's better than most running backs. And I think Gus is better than most pure runners when he's fully healthy. But all these moving parts, I feel like even with Cleveland dysfunctional on the other side, I don't have as much that I have to wonder about with them. So I think this breaks down the Cleveland offense. Amari Cooper should pretty much be shadowed by Marlon Humphrey all the time. I don't know why the Ravens would let that go any other way. With that said, Donovan Peoples-Jones is a problem for these other corners that they have, and I think Peoples-Jones is just probably a pretty good player in general. So you don't need to look at it as the Ravens corner is bad. You can still just kind of think that guy's kind of becoming a problem in his own right. Njoku played last week, should play this week too. So as long as you can threaten the second and third pass catching threat against this Ravens defense, I don't know if they can really defend themselves there because they have Humphrey, they have corners who can't play, and I guess Marcus Williams might be back.
He's back.
Soon.
He's
Okay,
back.
so
Hamilton too.
That definitely helps with the downfield seam coverage, but I don't know how you at all times protect that second and third non-Humphrey corner if you're the Ravens. And not that I can assume Deshaun Watson's in a place to take advantage of that right now, but it's the Ravens just have so many profound weaknesses. And whereas when the Browns are bad, I feel like it's more of a thing oh, they screwed up, stupid Browns, with the Ravens, it's there's just all these failure points, and they're not doing anything to make it better. And I just don't know how it could get better.
I think the Ravens can beat the Browns with one hand tied behind their back. I do. The Browns are stinky, stinky poo-poo. Deshaun Watson not fixing them this year. I think the Ravens go in there and make people feel sour.
Fair enough. Yeah, it'd be probably a pretty ugly game, I figure, if so.
Yep, and we're all going to be watching it. There's some good bowl games on. Maybe check in on that, but I will be watching. And it's not going to be the most beautiful game of football ever played. Before we get on over to the last Saturday game, we'll move on over to Sunday. Message from our friends over at Blue Wire. And a message from our friends over at No House Advantage. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Playing pick'em contests versus other people for the shot at winning big cash prizes. Download the app Choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot at hundreds of thousands of dollars every week. You can also test your skills versus the house and 20x your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league. That includes NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Sign up with the promo code NHAWIRE. That's NHAWIRE at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app on the app stores to get a first deposit match up to $25. Make sure to check out No House Advantage today and experience daily fantasy sports redefined, because it's not just how you play, but also where you play. You won't want to miss out on this. All right, capping things off for the Saturday slate: Dolphins, Bills, Buffalo, cold weather, Miami, warm weather.
Birds.
What happens? Yeah.
I think I don't know. I think Mike McDaniel and Tua have some real difficulties ahead, but I don't want to really indulge the whole like, are they great or do they suck actually kind of game that is I guess otherwise encouraged. I think yes, the Dolphins were pretty dependent on this particular set of moves on offense, and yeah, anytime you're really dependent on one thing to win over and over, you have to expect that adjustment to happen, and you have to worry about what the fallout is from that. But I don't think that it means, especially when a passing game is working to the extent that the Dolphins was, and specifically these in breaking routes that teams are that the 49ers really showed how to give trouble to by spamming the middle of the field. It's like when they're having the level of success that they did, even if it's a sort of success that's unsustainable. The reason it's unsustainable usually is because the defense has stopped playing you the same way and they give you a different look. The reason that the defense didn't give you that look in the first place is because it leaves them more vulnerable to a different thing than they wanted to be left vulnerable to the first time around. And you has in McDaniel's position, you have to figure out what that new opening is. You have to figure out where they moved resources from to give you this new problem that you didn't used to have. Unless they're playing with 12 players on the field and they were playing with 11 before, there's something that they're weaker to now, and you have to get at it. And I think traditionally, and particularly looking at the way the Chargers played them, the way you get the defense to pay for selling out to stop any part of the passing game is to run. And if you can take advantage of those lighter fronts, those fewer resources going towards stopping the point of attack and stopping the run game from breaking through it, that's when you find openings like what Jeff Wilson did before he got hurt. And if you saw his only 3 carries, it looked like there was no defense there because there basically wasn't. They were putting all of the defensive resources toward trying to keep Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle from getting open in the middle of the field. And you can't actually do that like the Chargers were and like the 49ers have without turning your eye a little bit away from the run game. And I think when Jeff Wilson got hurt in that Chargers game, the Dolphins offense was dead. And that's a ridiculous place to find yourself as a team, as a personnel manager. It's like, hey, it's great if Jeff Wilson wins you the game some week. That's fine. But if you lose because Jeff Wilson got hurt, you did a really bad job as a GM. And they didn't have the personnel to hammer between the tackles and between the guards, which is where the Chargers left themselves weakest to divert resources further down the field for the pass. And once they lost their one unremarkable means, by the way, of attacking that part of the field, they were just done. They had no other move. So that's a big problem to have. And at this point in the year, they can't do anything about it. And it's a problem that they will probably have again, certainly against the Bills, certainly in Buffalo. Only this time, you're going against a defense that has much better run stopping personnel and is more prepared to stop the run. The Bills don't need to sell out against the pass to stop the pass. They don't need to sell out against anything to stop anything. And that's a big difference from the way like Staley was running his defense. Like they're not going to sell out to give them the same problem that they had against the Chargers. And instead of Jeff Wilson having a completely clear runway to run through as a condition, as a necessary condition of that, there's just nowhere for Jeff Wilson to go this time. And you get the same bad passing game. So I don't know what the Dolphins can realistically do in this setting to compete. Like they're they have to just throw the ball a lot and just try to drive up Tyreek Hill's, Jalen Waddle's target volume and hope that they carry them with yardage after the catch and stuff like
What's
that.
going on with Waddle right now? Like,
Oh,
is
I
it
think
because we talked about the was it the tibia or the fibula? Because
the
one of them
fibula.
bones is hurting, and he just didn't do anything on Sunday. And Tyreek kind of had a busted wheel, it looked like, but I mean, he obviously had an awesome game. He's been practicing in full, so should be fine for this one. But the Dolphins' offense as a whole looks a lot less scary when you don't have both of those guys cooking.
Yeah, I could imagine Waddle's numbers more so just suffering for the decline that Tua was inevitably going to see, especially if Tua can't threaten with a greater variety of pass game looks. Uh, I think Waddle's great, but like when the when the pie starts to shrink, sometimes the tree gets like unevenly narrowed. Like it's sorry for using a weird mixed metaphor, but when the Tua goes from 300 yards passing to 200, it's not necessarily like Tyreek and Waddle lose at an equal rate. Sometimes it's just like the second function of the second receiver gets cut entirely, if only to keep the first one fully intact. And I think that's the kind of thing that the Dolphins are doing, and it's practically understandable. I mean, McDaniel, looking at Waddle and Hill, would be correct to say, well, Hill is more dangerous. So if one of them must get cut, we're cutting Waddle. That makes enough sense to me, even though I'm as big of a Waddle fan as anybody. With that said, the fibula thing. I mean, particularly when they specifically name the bone like that, it's like,
Yeah,
man, I don't even know what that is. You gotta be getting like way into the leg worksheet, the leg bone worksheet to point out that. And if you're pointing out that, that's not just like a general soreness thing. That's like he took a shot at a very particular place. So they listed him on the injury report with that, and then Friday they take him off. And this is me going back to the injury reporting protocol and the
mm.
enforcement of it. It's like I can believe that he had the fibula injury to start with. What I can't believe is like that he doesn't have it now on
Yeah,
Friday.
no,
So it's like you see all the times guys getting taken off. Rogers with his thumb, I guess, might be the most visible one this year. Guys getting taken off of the injury report with no designation when they are clearly still injured. So Waddle could be that case too. I don't know how to tell from afar.
yeah, it makes things tricky. I have a lot of best ball teams that are stacked up with Dolphins, and that's carried me well. Although, luckily, in a couple spots, there's been a bit of a passing of the baton where Trevor Lawrence was really bad to start
Oh
the year, and
man.
now he's cooking. So, like, just as Tua drops off, we're okay. We're okay. So we'll see how we're doing there. But enough about my fantasy teams. We got a ton of questions. Let's hit some. Love our viewers, love the people tuning into the live stream. So let's do right by them. Nick wants to know, and Nick looks like he has a Georgia Bulldog AVI, so we got to get to him. Would you grab Jeff Driscoll?
Where
I
is he
think
not
I
a
think his position eligibility differs on certain sites.
Oh, this is a real thing. I was like, I can't tell what the joke is here, but if I guess it's not a joke at all.
Who's laughing?
Oh, well, not me. I mean, Jeff Driscoll. I feel like you could find a better tight end prospect, but I mean, hats off to the Texans. Do whatever you'd like. It doesn't matter. But I don't think Jeff Driscoll, outside of Superflex anyway, is likely to be useful because it seems like Houston was committed to that red zone specialty position. Like they're trying to do a Taysom Hill thing with him, which
Hmm.
is really funny for a lot of reasons. It's if he's listed at tight end, maybe then does Driscoll become worth consideration as the dollar store Taysom Hill?
Yeah, I mean, if Pierce is dinged up, then they got to have someone that can push the pile. And Driscoll, for as not great as he is at playing quarterback, he's pretty good at being pretty big and reasonably
He's
athletic.
good
So
at being huge guy who runs into thing fast.
yeah,
So
and
let's see how
there's
that goes.
something to be said for that.
Yeah.
Fam first wants to know. So with Lamar obviously being hurt, would you start Brock Purdy tonight, Matt Ryan on Saturday, or Andy Dalton on Sunday?
Oh man. That's pretty tough. I feel like Ryan has the most upside, but I feel like there's a lot more risk with him than the other two, and maybe maybe I'd go with Dalton just because the matchup is so friendly, and I don't know what to make of Purdy on the road in a short week. So, yeah, might be a coward's pick, but I would say Dalton.
Okay. Okay. All right. I think
Oh,
I would
let's see. Got that other part on there too. Let's see.
yes. Would you sit one, or who would you sit of these three? Christian Kirk, Chris Olave, or Kenneth Walker in a PPR? I
Walker.
think I think I'm sitting Walker as well. All right, we got Rollo. Um, so we were just talking about Jalen Waddle. So if you have Garrett Wilson or Christian Watson, would you pivot off of Waddle for either of those guys?
Definitely Garrett Wilson. Who was Green Bay's matchup? What Ram?
They have the Rams at home.
Yeah, I'd go with Wilson there.
Okay. All right. I think I would too. Watson, very, very interesting, of course, with that matchup, but um, here we go. I definitely can't argue against Wilson right now. He's cooking. Um, let's see. DJ Duvernay wants to know Evan Ingram or Greg Dulcich this week.
Man, Ingram is tough for me to think through because I still really, really hate the way the Jaguars are using him. But he got going last week after a couple later big plays after some early struggles. And if Trevor Lawrence keeps playing the way he has, then it's like, John, I believe you or I might be able to be like a top 20 fantasy tight end in the Trevor Lawrence offense right
Yes.
now. I don't want to just like omit Dulcich because obviously the Denver offense to roaring success has committed itself to building around him. But I think I gotta go with. I won't say Ingram is better than Dulcich. I do think he is. If it, this is what's so maddening to me. Is if they used him exactly like the Broncos used Dulcich, Evan Ingram would have like 1,000 yards already. They just keep using him like underneath and doing like these crossing routes. Like he was a post route merchant from the slot. He was a post route merchant at Mississippi. And what did the Broncos do with Dulcich? He's always lining up at receiver. He's always running downfield. He never has to play real tight end. He doesn't have to do these stupid 2 yard curls over and over and over and over. So yeah, I at the very least hope Doug watches Dulcich this week and has a light bulb go off. But I would go with Ingram in the meantime because his quarterback isn't a total goober.
Yeah, no, Trevor Lawrence, the tiebreaker there for me as well. And then interesting little running back nugget as well. Would you consider David Montgomery over either Travis Etienne or Saquon Barkley? I think maybe over
Probably
Etienne.
not,
No?
but I was gonna say probably not, and I don't know. Let's see. I was gonna say maybe over Barkley just because the Washington run defense has been pretty good, but I guess that doesn't really matter with Barkley. I don't think I would.
Okay.
I don't, but not that I feel strongly about it though.
All right, so we're standing pat, ETN, and Saquon. Let's see. Let's unpack the Bills side quickly. We before we move on. Your thoughts on how they're looking right now offensively, and how they might kind of gear things up this week against the Dolphins.
I think they still look a little odd. Like I don't know if Josh Allen's elbow, if it's like he has a certain number of shots he can make it take in a game, like a certain number of times that he can let it rip, and then it like needs to let it heal a few days. I don't know if that's what's going on, but I don't see him like really opening up the offense like he did earlier this year. He's had like momentary, uh, throwing that looks like the old Josh Allen, and then other plays where you're like what exactly was he doing there? So I'm a little concerned for that. For this game, I'm not though, because I think they'll have such good field. I think the Dolphins' offense is just short of Tyreek Hill giving them like 80 yards after the catch in this game. I think the Dolphins' offense is pretty much just dead. So I don't think the Bills' offense needs to do that much other than sit on the field positioning that they get. The Dolphins' run defense has been good and much better than the pass, so they might play tough against the run and sort of invite big plays from the Bills' passing game. Just viewing it as better than letting the run get established first. But even if they have some amount of success for that, I think the Bills just eventually break through it. Even if they have to just kind of like run a lot and barely eke out first downs and tire out the Dolphins first. It's like that's all on the table. I don't know how they could blow it.
And for the record, I think that the Dolphins are really going to struggle. I'm trying to like not buy like the cold weather narrative and everything, but like I just don't see Tua ripping the ball through 16-mile-an-hour winds with ease. Like that just is not
No.
really him. Not even if you like reverse the film so he looks like a right-handed quarterback, I still can't see it. So um, I'm very concerned about Miami. I do love the Bills in this spot. Let's head on over to Sunday. Oh, we love this game. Steelers Panthers. Steel Panther. Hilarious band.
Yeah, I think I'm getting really sad thinking about this game. Um,
Give me the
Credit to the
Panthers.
Panthers. I
They
mean,
got some
for
juice.
yeah, I mean, it's really ugly. I'll admit that it. Even as someone who is a little bit more fond of running the ball than all the apparently new wave of analysts, I'm not exactly a fan of the kind of game that the Panthers are playing right now, but hey, they have a pretty straightforward strategy. It's like try to bear hug your opponent and like jump in, just bear hug your opponent and then jump into the water and just like try to drown both of you and like you get out at the last second kind of thing is all that they're really doing. And that's their ability to compete basically comes down to how the ball bounces. It's like they have to win two coin flips in a row basically, and that's what it comes down to for them. And then they don't even really like aspire to run like an NFL offense. They're running this like 20 pass attempt like wishbone with Sam Darnold. So I don't think you can really compete for a very. This is almost it's almost like when the Dolphins started doing like a wildcat Ronnie Brown offense for a couple weeks. It's like, hey, they're winning because this team's just like no one game plans for such a stupid scheme. But then when you if you are forced out of necessity to just like take them seriously enough to beat them, or if you're Mike Tomlin and you're just like a really good coach and you pay attention to game planning things and you come up with uh, pragmatic game planning from week to week, you look at the Panthers and you figure something out because they only have so many tricks and you know more than the last guy, and even the last guy might come up with a better answer this time around if he saw what he did last week. So I think the Steelers probably roll here. Not sure how. And in this, and for the Steelers, rolling means winning by 5. So they're gonna win like 13-7 or something like that.
So I guess what I will say is I felt like the Steelers, by and large, might have played better than Baltimore last week. But Mitchell Trubisky, like the turnover factor,
Big
like it can't be ignored. Like he threw 3 just horrendous picks deep in Baltimore territory, and that and the blocked field goal really kind of like altered the game completely and ended up
Ravens
with
got
them.
whooped, honestly. I mean,
Yeah,
to have 3 red zone turnovers and a special teams turnovers, like you should win by 21 points when you do that.
yeah, not squeak it out at the last second. So yeah, but I'm still firm on them beating the Browns. But I feel like the Steelers, if there's no Pickett and it's Trubisky out there, like I think with the ball hawking nature of the Panthers on defense right now and the pass rush that they have against an offensive line that stinks, really stinks, and they're at home, I give the Panthers a fighting shot in this one.
Oh yeah, the Panthers certainly have more than a fighting shot. I just these kinds of teams can lose anything. They when they score so few points, it's like if you're a one possession team by design, it's like you're gonna have bad luck streaks, you're gonna have good luck streaks, and neither
Yeah.
of them will mean anything. And I just kind of think that the Steelers are more prepared to kind of live in the mud, like really live there. Whereas I feel like the Panthers are kind of just like nomads in all of this. I don't know. I don't think they're built for this life as much as the Steelers are.
Okay, so they only adopted the mud. Steelers born in it. Got it.
Yes, that's exactly it.
So I think that basically ties up our Steelers Panthers preview. I don't think there's much else to tackle there. Bears Eagles is actually pretty interesting. Bears 9-point dogs at home. The Eagles heading into last week had struggled at least against the spread on the road. They absolutely destroyed the Giants. Your summation that this Giants pass defense wouldn't be able to hold up was completely accurate. But I feel like the Bears have a little bit, as crazy as it is to say, like a little bit of a livelier offense. I know they don't have Mooney, don't have Herbert, but they're coming off the bye. You got to figure that Fields is going to be a little bit closer to 100%. I mean, he's just a problem for defenses right now. It's limited in the ways that he can do it, but when he does win, like it can really change things. So I think that the Bears, their defense is in big trouble here. Of course, I think the Eagles will basically be able to name their score, but I'm a Justin Fields believer at this point.
Yeah, definitely a Justin Fields believer, and the Bears could make it a little tough on the Eagles defense if they put Claypool in the slot all the time against Josiah Scott. I don't know if Avonte Maddox is back, but however you can get your best route runner away from Darius Slay and James Bradbury, that's something you need to do against the Eagles, and you do it by getting in the slot. So we'll see if Claypool has a good game, and I'm thinking like 80 yards or more. Maybe then I can imagine the Bears covering, but I don't know. I think you're right about the Eagles' offense side. I just don't know what the Bears can do to even keep them under like 40. Like I worry about them giving up points every single drive in this game. So I just don't know. Like I'm having to imagine Justin Fields like throwing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns to keep up with that kind of outburst from the Eagles, and I can't quite see Fields doing it given the team around him on offense basically.
Yeah.
So I think the Eagles cover, and I think Fields. I don't understand how anyone could question him at this point. I thought a lot of the criticisms were ridiculous to start with, but to even question him, let alone doubt him at this point, is like belligerently stupid in my opinion. But he still has no help, and this is still a very good defense. So he could, particularly if Jalen Hurts has like 4 touchdowns and the Eagles are pushing for 40 points, Fields will eventually, in that scenario, press to make a play to keep up. And I can imagine him turning the ball over pretty quickly if he in this to test and press the Eagles defenses to say you have to eventually test someone other than the slot corner. You're eventually going to have to throw at Slay and Bradbury. And when it comes to that point, that's when I think the Bears basically just fall apart because it'd be one thing if they had a decent receiver running against Slay or Bradbury, but Claypool doesn't cut it. You need Claypool in the slot and a second threat who can give you contributions on the outside, and I don't see it.
So I know that, like we're saying, there's really no outside personnel to speak of. And even if there was, it'd be tough matchups against those corners. Cole Kmet's had some success,
Yeah, he's in
since
the right part of the field.
so do we think that, he might be a key here as well?
Uh, Sorry, I don't have a good sense of how much the Bears specifically use him to counter pass rush issues. If he has to block more to deal with the Eagles' pass rush, then that's obviously a problem, including
Yeah.
for Justin Fields, because there is no one else who can contribute as a pass catcher if Kmet doesn't do it. So, uh, yeah, I don't. I will say I think if Kmet does run routes, then he'll produce with them. I worry about him having like instead of like a 40 route game, more like 25, and he blocks a bunch more than he might against a team with like a weak rotation on the defensive line.
Okay, so we're kind of hoping to thread the needle then as
We
far
need the
as
Treston Ebner wide receiver unveiling, and then we've got enough route runners to project like to budget a 200-yard passing game from Fields.
it'd be sick if like the receiver they took on day 2 like was useful. Wouldn't that be cool?
Who was that?
Bayless
Sorry.
Jones, right?
Oh, Bayless Jones. Yeah. Oh,
Wouldn't
I
that be
forgot
cool?
about. You never take a 25-year-old gunner in the third round. And they probably took him over some real good ones too. That's
Yeah, yeah, like almost undoubtedly. I'll see if I can pull that up at some point and see the receiver pecking order and the compounding mistake of that one. Before we move on to our next game, got a handful more questions. Chris, patiently waiting. Let's get to you, Chris. Akers,
Akers.
Akers or Burkhead? Okay, Akers is
I
the
mean,
answer.
is Pierce out?
I think he has a high ankle sprain, so
Oh yeah, he's out. So I'm sorry, John. Do the Texans have another? Who they don't have Marlon Mack. I know that, but who's?
I think we're in the Dario Gumbawale days.
Oh right, they have the. That's what they have. Two guys who are both really bad third down specialists. Oh man. Sorry, John. I answered a little quicker than I should have. I think I'm still thinking Akers, but do we? The thing that I'm worried about with Burkhead is that if the Texans fall far behind, he might not be able to capitalize on the garbage time because it might be a Gumbo Wale or like anybody who plays in that case because the Texans know they're not actually competing. So I don't know. Burkhead, if he gets 40 snaps, is the answer. I just don't think he will, I guess, is why I'm sticking with Akers.
All right, Akers it is, but I feel queasy about both of them, frankly.
Yeah, it's tough. Sorry.
Joey wants to know Devin Singletary, Drake London, Gus Edwards, or Chris Moore.
Let's see. I'd stick with Singletary.
Yeah, I think I would as well.
He could get like 3 touchdowns in this game. Even if he is held under 50 yards, he could still get like 20 fantasy points in this.
Yeah, I'm definitely in on Singletary. I'm very confident in the Bills this week. Steven wants to know, should I drop, I'm guessing Pierre Strong, pick up Jalen Warren, so because Najee is dinged up apparently.
Yeah, I will say I think Ayuk is a totally good and Pittman. Sorry, the last part of this question is are Pittman and Ayuk good flexes, and I would say in most cases, certainly Ayuk in any case. Um, what is the latest thing with Harris here?
He's
Missed practice
diagnosed
with a
with being
hip.
mid. He's mid.
Man, I feel like Harris is getting such an unfair deal. It's like people are not you, John, but some people are just kind of like I feel like I don't know, penalizing him for them being too high on him in the first place. It's like,
Yeah, no,
uh,
they had the dizzying highs of last year and the terrifying lows of this year when really he's in the creamy middle.
yeah, if I called him Steven Jackson as a prospect, I'd feel maybe more sting about the way it's turned out for him. But he's exactly the guy that I think we had reason to suspect, which A is still pretty good. Like he hasn't even been bad. Like he's doing the exact same peripheral stats as last year. It's exactly the same. And like the tune is just like, oh, he sucks now because I just wrote off his rookie year as anomalously low yards per carry and thought that it would get better this year because I don't know, maybe that guy who says rushing yards per carry isn't real. Um, Pushed some propaganda that got people thinking Harris would run for 5 yards a carry this year, and that's why they're so bitter. They're like, he's doing a good job, and that team sucks. So as someone who was saying like ETN over Harris, no questions asked, I still feel like Harris is getting like left with like the stench of failure that should be on the analysis community at large. But in any case, this hip thing, if he's not practicing today, Thursday, then I worry definitely and start to get my hopes up a little higher for Jalen Warren. Um, if Harris is playing, though, I don't think Warren's going to do. I think I need Harris to sit out for Warren to be useful.
Yeah. I think that's the way I view it. I mean, if you're pressed for time though, like would you at this moment or before waivers run again over the weekend,
Oh, sorry, it
would
was
you
between
drop
Strong or something.
I believe Pierre Strong or Jalen Warren?
I'm sorry. What was Stevenson's injury? Like, is Stevenson
I think he
out?
might have hurt his ankle as well.
Okay. Well, I'll
I
say
will check
this.
that right now.
I think if Stevenson is out, then Strong is my answer, even if Harris is out.
Man, Monday night was for as bad as that game was, like that was a game for you and I. Like with Kevin Harris scoring a touchdown, Pierre Strong looking good. It's like, sweet vindication.
Yeah. Yeah. We were probably the only people mentally ill enough to know any of those names at that point.
Yep. Let alone like not just know them, but be legitimately excited about them. It's like,
To
oh
have
my
a
god.
very detailed opinion about.
Like, listen, the Jackrabbits, he was the engine of their offense last year. Pay attention. Um, Pierre Strong Hive, it's real. Expect
I
us.
will say I have those two rookies for the Patriots. I feel like they're complete wild cards. Like even Harris, I think we both like him, but A, he's an underclassman. B, he's clearly one of those guys who's like working into a rhythm. Like when you see Kevin Harris get carries with the Patriots, even in the preseason, he doesn't look like the guy at South Carolina because you can tell he's still thinking when he's running. And sometimes guys never get out of their own heads that way. Uh, but when they do, if they do, it's like you can see the switch happen right there, and I really hope that happens with Harris because I you can tell he's like thinking when he's running, and he could do so much more than he has.
Yeah, and that, but fumbling as a rookie, never good. Fumbling as a
It's
rookie
like a
for the
screwed up
Patriots.
handoff thing. It's like
Yeah.
that's I don't know.
I'll blame
He's
Mac Jones. That's fine.
And the other thing is Pierce Strong has made mental errors too, and he's actually like an overclass. He's like 24 already, whereas Harris like might have just turned 22. So Strong has no good excuse to be messing up cues, and yet he has. So Belichick might want to kill Kevin Harris most of the time, but he still might need to rely on him for like 30 snaps here if Stevenson's out.
Yeah, and Stevenson was not practicing as of Wednesday, so there is a chance it's the rookie show a little bit once again on Sunday. One more question here before we got to start ripping through these games. Alvin Kamara or Aaron Jones for the playoffs? I guess got to win 1 week at a time. Aaron Jones for me against the Rams.
I kind of like Kamara against the Falcons, so I don't know. I guess I'll go with Kamara, but I have no idea. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no, fair. And this could be the game I always like. I'm trying to will into existence where the Packers just like steamroll with AJ Dillon in a cold December night at Lambeau Field. Let's keep going here. Quickly, Chiefs Texans. Chiefs 14-point favorites. I'm on the Texans to cover, but
14 points?
yeah,
Maybe. Yeah, I mean,
statistically, like the
Dallas,
big road favorites are not covering right now.
interesting. And yeah, I mean, as Dallas showed last week, there is absolutely a such thing as a clearly better team, just like not using its resources against a lesser one. If Dallas was calling that like a playoff game, Davis Mills gets sacked 9 times. I don't care how well the Texans played or how badly Dallas did there. It's like there was a degree of intention to the way they played that game, and the Chiefs could fall to the same thing. There's no reason for them to be using ambitious blitz packages. There's no reason to use disguised coverages in this game. So if the Chiefs are playing preseason defense on purpose, yeah, that'd be an easy way for the Texans to cover. I think it'll require that because the Texans really, man, it's brutal, and the
Yeah.
Chiefs. I feel like even though the Dallas or no they couldn't stop Dallas. The Texans had a couple good games against the run and then fell back apart against Dallas. I definitely see this matchup with the Chiefs as more the second thing, like especially if when Mahomes is on the field, they can't defend the run.
Right, and as John asked us about earlier, we did get to that, but Pacheco over James Conner for kind of for that
This
reason. This is a really good setup for him.
this should be like a 120-yard game for Pacheco, something like that.
There's any justice in this world. Let's see here. Before we get on over to our next game, got a message from our friends over at Monkey Knife Fight. Football is officially back on Monkey Knife Fight with all the NFL action you're looking for. And if college football is more your speed, they've got plenty of that too. Check me out on their Monkey Knife Fight college football show. We'll be dropping that Friday. Get you ready for bowl season. On Monkey Knife Fight, there's no sharks, no salary caps, and no math. It's just easy to play, easy to win daily fantasy player props. Join now at monkeyknifefight.com and you'll get your first game free. Then use promo code RWNFL. That's promo code RWNFL to get your first deposit match instantly up to $100. So what are you waiting for? Join Monkey Knife Fight today. All right. Speaking of the Cowboys, we got these next two games I think are the most interesting on the slate for Sunday. We got the Jags going up against the Cowboys, and then we'll hit Lions Jets. But all right, so we're looking at the Cowboys 4.5 point favorites. I think the public is going to be a little bit feeling stinky about the Cowboys after what they did against the Texans last week, and the Jaguars. They're very inconsistent, but when they look good, they look very good. So your thoughts there?
Yeah, I was worried about the Jaguars rushing Trevor back to play through that toe injury last week, but knock on wood, it seems like he's fine. So that was my one concern. I didn't want him getting hurt in some long-term way. Trevor, again, is still a young quarterback. He still doesn't have that much help on offense. I think there's going to still be ups and downs with him. But man, 2 games in the past 3 weeks now, it's like you watch him and it's like it's becoming increasingly difficult to imagine Lawrence failing. Like you watch him, and even if you remember, even if you only saw his bad games previously, it's like if you watch him this last game and the one 2 weeks ago, you start to. I think it's like the reality is just inescapable. Like it hits you. Like even if you were a Trevor skeptic, even if you wanted to see him fail, it's like you watch him in those 2 games and you kind of just understand whether you want to or not. You get it. It's like, oh, he's different. This doesn't usually happen. This isn't something that's going to happen anytime soon again afterward. And if Lawrence continues to be the player that he uh, may have already become and is certainly going to be at some point, then any team can be beaten by him. And Dallas is in that group. However, I still worry that this is a matchup where the Dallas defense, which was definitely hiding its cards last week, and probably for this specific game, they were saving some of those tricks. They're going to unleash all of them here, and Trevor Lawrence's offensive line is not very good. He's really good managing pass rush, so he kind of evades pressure almost like preemptively in ways that would show up as registered pressures with other quarterbacks. He could have that like margin that's normally that margin of safety that's normally dictated by his abilities. He could have that margin wiped out by the Dallas pass rush just having so much more than even other good pass rushes do. So I worry about that a little bit, and I certainly worry about it. Marvin Jones, Zay Jones blowing it at receiver. Uh, I wonder like what happens if Evan Ingram doesn't get a lot of yardage after the catch on a drag route this week, like he did last week. Stuff like that. They still keep using Ingram the wrong way. Eventually, Marvin Jones is going to have a dud game. This is a fine setting for that. Zay Jones, even when Zay Jones is putting up these numbers lately, he still drops passes that like are amazing Trevor throws and stuff, and it's just he's he's just not good. Or at least as a wide receiver 2, he is not good. He would be good enough as a wide receiver 3, but it's like Trevor's getting all these guys to play above their heads, and it's like, what if they don't? What if they start
Mm-hmm.
playing like they are? And against good defenses is where you see overachieving offensive players tend to fall back down to earth. It tends to show you for what you really are. And if Zay Jones shows what he really is, if Marvin Jones shows what he is, that's already making it difficult to budget the Trevor kind of games like he's had in 2 of the last 3 weeks. Christian Kirk having a big game here makes a lot of sense. I feel like Evan Ingram should have a way to make a big play here. I don't know if I trust Doug Peterson to dial it up. But all I'm really convincing myself of is like Christian Kirk produces, and I don't know who else. So uh, maybe Trevor's so good, maybe he's turned such a corner that he can just make the Zay Jones, whatever the example is, maybe he can just make them play really well or produce really well, I should say. I can't take that leap of faith against this defense.
I mean, I'm just going to, for
Fair
better or
enough.
for
Like
worse.
I said, if Trevor's playing the way he has, it's just like you can't do anything about that Jedi stuff. It's just there's nothing you can do.
He is the chosen one. Uh, it's becoming more and more apparent. The guy
Man, I
is
really wish
ridiculous.
there could be a receipt kind of thing on this one because, like, all these pointy-headed analysts be like, "Oh, the data is quite concerning about Trevor Lawrence." Like, watch the game one time. If you hate the game so much that you can't watch it, then just try to antagonize the labor of some other sport industry. Like,
Yeah,
get out,
leave us
get
alone.
out of here. You hate this game. Stop watching it, or rather,
Scram.
start watching it or stop talking about it.
Please. It's not that big of a request, but my God, we need it. Lindsay wants to know McKinnon or Zonovan Bam Knight and Metcalf or Keenan Allen. So I think my inkling on the second one would be Metcalf, but I think in this particular setup, I'm worried about the Seahawks passing game this evening, so I probably defer to Allen. As far as McKinnon versus Knight, I'm going Zonovan Knight, I think.
Yeah, that one's tough for me. I don't think Zonovan Knight is very good, and I think the Jets, LaFleur is a fool for playing him as a starter over Michael Carter. That won't last, but it might last this game because the Lions' defense, better or not lately, it's still not good. And Zonovan Knight to me is replacement level player. Replacement level players at running back can produce if they're given volume against bad defenses. So. With that said, I would probably go McKinnon just because I don't know. Like if Ronald Jones doesn't play 20 snaps in this game, then I feel like Pacheco is capped at like 35 or something like that. And if McKinnon's playing 25 snaps in a game where the Chiefs are scoring 45 or 40 points or something like that, then I think he can do something. Uh and McKinnon too has the benefit of being the guy that the defense will never care about. And I mean, like even this big game that he had against the Broncos, and I'm sure like box score people are just like, oh, he's a good running back. I knew it. Like the defense literally just did not cover him. Like they have to
The
make that. They
optimi-
have to. Oh, sorry. It's like that's what and defenses have to make that choice. It's not like they don't understand the consequences. It's just like, well, we can't cover everyone. He's the one we're not covering. Simple as that. And it's like now he gets that benefit against the worst run defense.
Yeah, he does. The optimizer loved him last week, and I was like, no way, exclude. And
The optimizer was kind of wrong, It's like that setup from the defense, the yards after the catch per catch that McKinnon produced, like that was well out of his range of outcomes, of any projected range of outcomes, I should say. So yeah, I don't think the thing is this week, I don't think he needs that complete anomaly of a setup. It's just like Charkandrick West could run for 150 yards at running back in this
there's a
offense
name.
against the Texans. Yeah, and as much as I bash McKinnon, it's like, yeah, he's better than Charkandrick West.
Uh, I was thinking, who was the coastal running back? That's who I'm confusing him with, right? The one that was on the Ravens like 5 years ago,
Co- uh,
or Towson? Maybe he's from Towson.
are you thinking of
Uh,
Taliaferro? Oh, you're thinking of
Lorenzo.
Terrence West. Towson
I'm
was
thinking of
Terrence
Terrence.
West.
Yeah, and Lorenzo Taliaferro. My God.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. There's some names. Another quick one here before we move on over. Goff or Geno Smith? Well, why don't we use that as a segue into Jets versus Lions? We already talked about Geno. Are some concerns for him this evening, of course, but I'm concerned about the Lions maybe coming back to earth here. Some books have the Lions favored by 1. Others have the Jets favored by 1. So that's kind of interesting how this
I'm
market
sorry. Is
is
Mike
shaping up.
White? Mike White. I know that they had to. They took him after the game to see if he was mortally wounded, and it turned out he wasn't. That's good. He's playing, right? I don't understand how.
So I think Robert Saleh said on Wednesday that he was expecting him to play, and he was limited on Wednesday, which I think gets him trending in the right direction. The fact that this is a Sunday game as opposed to having to play on Saturday, I think that certainly helps his case. But so
I just don't get it with
let's
the
talk about this
Lions.
game under the content or under the assumption that Mike White's out there.
Yeah, I don't get the Lions hype. Is this just a necessary corollary of the Jared Goff is good narrative that's getting peddled? Is like people have to say like, oh yeah, the Lions are good. They have a good quarterback. The Lions are selectively competitive at home, or maybe in other dome settings if we're being generous, but more so at home when they're facing a less than good defense. That's it. And it's very simple that this is the case. I don't understand why everything has to be so stupid all the time. Jared Goff sucks. We know that. When he's produced at home, and the only times he's produced at home, it's for structural reasons like the offensive line, which is top 5 in the league. It's playing indoors where his lack of driving, throwing strength doesn't matter as much because there's no wind and the air is, easily cut through. And he apparently has like some psychological benefit of playing at home. Like his nerves don't get the better of him the way they do in other settings. Road golf is still road golf. And I, particularly with so many recent examples this year, I don't understand why this wouldn't be like the first thing you think of when talking Lions on the road, Lions in New York, Lions in New York in December. That sounds bad for golf, doesn't it? And it's like you just look at the recent analysis of some types of people, and it's just like, nope, golf's just good. It's looking pretty good for the Lions. No, Lions lose.
Well, Goff on the road this year in 5 games has 2 touchdown passes and 4
Yeah, I
interceptions.
wonder what's going to happen against the Jets defense on the road
That's
in
what
the
I'm
middle of
thinking.
December.
That's what I'm
Yeah, here, if
thinking.
the Lions win, it's because they threw it fewer than 25 times. They need defensive touchdown. They need turnovers on defense, things that can happen. But I don't think anyone's picturing that. I think you got people looking at stupid metrics that aren't real, going, Jared Goff's playing well this year. Jared Goff's better than Matt Stafford. Did you hear this? Like, really? Like, yeah, look at this sheet. It says it.
They also had
I guess
a
that must be
fake
real.
metric. They had a fake metric about the offensive line actually being bad.
Oh,
That was a fun one.
that's a good one. Yes, yes. It's good that these people are allowed to speak freely.
Yeah, and have like very large audiences for whatever reason. But yeah, I'm all over the Jets here. If I can get them at a book at +1, even better. But I'm comfortable taking them -1. Do like the Jets in this spot. I think that we're starting to see the the theory of the Lions maybe start to work out a little bit here. I'm with you. I don't think that Goff is necessarily the long term answer.
He's terrible,
Not
man. Oh, dude, some of these metrics that people are citing are from that game. Like, did anyone see the Jamison Williams touchdown?
Yeah,
It looked like it was thrown by a backup tight end. Like, it was
it,
awful
it
throw,
was in
and
the
and
air
the
for a
the, the
long
calculator
time,
boys are going, "Oh, Jared Goff's getting better." Like, you're
and
just an
there was
idiot.
no one around him. Like I mean, Jameson Williams can create that. Like to
It
be
was a
fair, but
busted coverage,
it
and he
was.
was late to throw it, and he underthrew it, and Jamison Williams had to wait for it to catch it. That was a terrible throw by Goff, and those people are saying that it was a good play, and they like literally reassessed his value and raised. They said like, actually, he's a quarterback 9 now. It's unbelievable, and the best part of all of it, John, is that even when Jared Goff goes 11 of 24 for like 112 yards and 3 interceptions against the Jets, they'll say they were right.
They will, and I look forward to that. So yes, give me the Jets. Give me the Jets all day. Um, all right, let's whip through these next few games here. We got Falcons Saints. Uh, expectations on Desmond Ritter.
Oh man, it would seemingly be that it can't get worse than Mariota, but the Falcons roster does suck. It wouldn't be a team that you say seems good for a quarterback. You know, if you, without knowing who the quarterback was, you would project problematic numbers for them. So that's one layer of concern that I have. The second layer is I don't know how good I should think Ritter is. Like, I'm open to a lot of possibilities. I think he's difficult to pin down. Is all I'm saying. He's got certain things that we know are good for sure. Like he's definitely got a good head on his shoulders. Speaks well to his like football temperament and character that he was a 4-year starter at Cincinnati and took them to pretty high competitive places. I know they didn't win anything big and like Alabama wrecked them, but it's like
That
it's not
wasn't his
normal.
fault.
Yeah, it's not normal for a Cincinnati type program to get into that setting in the first place. Like it usually requires a pretty rare quarterback, a rare collegiate quarterback, which Ritter was. Even if he doesn't turn out to be a good NFL quarterback, he was an uncommonly good college quarterback, and he didn't have much help at Cincinnati. Like he had problematic production, yes, and in that production, if you look at the tape, you could probably see plays that he's showing various concerning things, but those concerns, if they hadn't been there in the presence of a better supporting cast, then those are concerns that can be managed. I think, like if he had everything set up, easy, teed up, and he still was making these mistakes, that's when I worry. So, like, yeah, I don't think Ritter will ever be like an above average passer, but he, if he's given some structural assistance, if he's given something, especially like what Jared Goff has with the Lions, I would not want to bet against Ritter in that case. In the meantime, though, it's like we have something far from that case. It's the Falcons, no Kyle Pitts. Drake London's the best pass catcher, and he just turned 21 like 3 months ago. It's tough for a guy like Ritter. It'd be tough for any quarterback in these situations. So I worry for him. He's definitely got the same kind of like wheels as Mariota. You know, the 4.52 40. It's like he can run. Uh, I think he'll be rather poised, even if he's under a lot of pressure. But I think there could be some ugly, the same ugly passing game we've seen already, basically.
Yeah, and I worry about like even though the Saints obviously have been bad this year, that's still a tough place to have your first
Oh
NFL
yeah,
start. And that even though both teams are bad, I think that a divisional game like this, there's some added juice here. So like I'm concerned about Ritter in this spot. I'm excited to see how he does over these next few weeks. Whether Atlanta can figure out like is there enough here to where we can go into next year with maybe just like a veteran free agent as the backup and see if Ritter can do this or not. But um, I don't think that this is going to be a sparkling debut from him.
yeah, I agree with everything you said.
Let's see here. But we talked about Alvin Kamara versus Aaron Jones a few minutes ago. Why the Kamara optimism?
Uh, Not really so much optimism. Like part of that particular question too is like I don't trust the Green Bay offense that much
Fair.
either. But I just think it's unlikely that Kamara's undergone too much physical decline, or at least like the physical decline that would explain the degree to which his numbers have been disappointing. So I think his numbers have disappointed mostly for structural, circumstantial reasons, and therefore I don't think it's just going to necessarily improve for variance reasons. But I also have to think he's gotten kind of like the worst end of the variance consideration. So, uh, in a game where I expect the Saints to win, and it being at home and against a defense like Atlanta's, in that case, I can at least be optimistic for Kamara, just because the structural details seem to be in his favor for the first time in a couple months or whatever.
Let's get a good Alvin Kamara pass catching game. That's not too much to ask. I feel like we could get that here on Sunday.
Maybe a 6 touchdown game, John, to make the average fantasy points per game register in the top 5 or something.
Well, we're getting close to Christmas. He did that on Christmas a couple years ago. I think I was wearing this shirt when he did that. So,
Keep that shirt on, John. Don't take it off till Monday.
all right, fine. Here we go again. Just wearing this shirt for weeks on end. All right, let's go. Broncos, Cardinals.
Man, what the hell can you say about this one? Yeah, both teams are just wrecks, and I don't know, man. Steve Keim leaving the team for health related reasons is very strange. It's like, is this what happens when the owner wants to fire you, but he's also your drinking buddy? So he comes up with, why don't you say you're homesick and we'll just leave you on payroll until next year or something. I don't know what like the guy was there all along, and like what you're telling me, like right when Kyler Murray gets hurt and right when the team that he built goes into just like complete wreckage state, he all of a sudden, I hope he has no mounting or otherwise pressing health issues. I don't mean to call faker on a guy who's like in the ER or whatever, but if this is the timing is suspicious, and we knew it was a politically tense situation because of a lot of things about that team, and it's like all the bad things are happening, but they're still not doing the change that would normally happen by now. It's like there's it's like a standoff kind of feeling to me, and this is all before factoring Kyler Murray being out and so many other stupid things about that team being true as they are. So I'd be surprised if the Broncos could blow this one. I guess I shouldn't be though if they do. Like I guess that's pretty stupid of me to ever be surprised for the Broncos to lose a game, but I would be surprised. I think it's not often that you see two teams with as much dysfunction, discord, drama as these two, and especially like this point in the year being just broken down and battered as they are. So either side could just fail to show up and sleepwalk to a ridiculous loss. But I guess I would just sooner expect that to be the Cardinals, just because they have to be like just completely fried right now.
I I got some lingering dumb football guy brain. I
Yeah.
think Colt McCoy can lead him in there and beat the
Oh, well,
Broncos.
yeah. That's a good point. I mean, Colt McCoy is arguably like a more stabilizing kind of like coach presence than either of the actual head coaches in this game.
Yeah.
Like we'll just call Colt McCoy the interim coach right now.
He's a player
Uh,
coach. He's like Bill Russell.
yeah, I mean, and it's true though, and like it's easy to imagine this actually being the case. Like imagine like the Cardinals practices, and he's like Cliff Kingsbury's in the film room, and he's kind of like the substitute teacher. And when he breaks and he leaves, the quarterbacks all just look to Colt McCoy, and for whatever they actually think. Like, it's possible. It's easy enough to imagine. And at least in the Hard Knocks, a little bit that I've watched, it seems like Cliff Kingsbury kind of doesn't get listened to as much as maybe some other coaches. It's like not that they
I saw a
dislike
little bit of
them,
that last night myself, actually. That
not
was the
that they
first time I'd
necessarily.
watched it.
Yeah, sorry, not necessarily that they dislike him or something, but they really treat him like he's a substitute teacher or something. Uh, I don't know what you would. Nate Hackett is like all the substitute teachers are on strike, and they had to bring in like a birthday clown who like he washed all the makeup off of his face, but he forgot to take off the bike horn from his
So
shirt.
he's the English teacher or like the substitute English teacher who, like has to take over while the regular teacher's away. And it's very clear to the students because they read the Spark Notes that he is just reading off the Spark Notes as well. And so there's like a mutual like I
What
know
I'm
what you're doing here. You're full of it just like I am.
The part that I'm having trouble fitting in is the substitute teacher equivalent of being a breakdancing coach's son in the '90s, which Nate Hackett apparently when he's not yelling "I love gold," he's like breakdancing and
Oh
do,
God,
do
he just needs to be on the chive. Like
he is like the chive embodied. He might have been like a piece of the chive transplanted to a different piece of soil, and look back and there's just a bald guy sitting there in the soil one day, um, breakdancing. But yeah, he. So like I'm talking about all these things that make Cliff Kingsbury like a weak head coach. I can't say that it's any worse than any axis with you know Hackett either. Like there is no chance anybody on that team respects him. And it's almost like if it were for like Russell Wilson being the lightning rod of everyone's hatred,
Mhm.
the players might have turned and been like, wait, who is this guy anyway? Like, why are we listening to him? And instead they just like hear like a, a haze, like it's not even in like their main line of consciousness. Like it's like they hear a voice somewhere that they aren't saying like, got to do drills, guys. But all they're really thinking is like, I want to choke Russell Wilson. And as soon as Russell Wilson's like not there to be choked, they're gonna turn around and be like, what's that noise that I've been hearing all this time? Like, wait, that guy, him?
And
Yeah.
it's
So
just
I.
the jazz flute scene from Anchorman.
Oh yeah, he would. That's when they were. There's definitely been a point where some Broncos player was using a stall, and Nate Hackett put his head under the door with playing the flute to their horror. Um, but yeah, I think the Broncos defense is the constant to me in this game. Like Ejiro Evero is doing a really great job. I'll probably say his name backwards. I'll probably switch it up intentionally to Hedge. I don't know which is his first and which is his last, but he's a good defensive coordinator. He's really, really good. The Broncos should have made him the head coach months ago. Uh, that guy is doing a great job every single week, and that Denver defense will show up. It's the rest of the team that might not show up. But yeah, you're right. It's basically like Colt McCoy versus Ejiro Evero. Never seen a matchup quite like this.
Yeah, it's funky. It's something that I will definitely be keeping my eye on Sunday afternoon. That we don't have an amazing Sunday afternoon
I want to
slate,
see
so
this game.
yeah, there's
I
some
want
there's
to
some
see it.
sicko appeal to this one.
Dude, a couple
Let's
of
hit.
the Broncos games earlier this year were some of the most entertaining games I've ever seen because you will never see a team so many times in one game have this like this is it, this is the last shot feeling, and then they blow it, and then they get another shot and keep blowing it and blowing it. Like Hackett is an artist in that regard.
Yeah, even that Texans game early on is like, oh my god, what is this? Let's see here. One more or two more questions here quickly, and we'll rip through the rest. So setting his lineups here, needs 2 receivers and a flex. So basically pick 3 of these or Zonovan. Donovan Peoples-Jones, Hollywood Brown, Christian Kirk, Brandon Ayuk, or Zonovan Knight. I
I'd
think
take the last 3.
Yeah, I was definitely going to say like lock in Kirk and Ayuk. I think I'm eliminating DPJ right off the bat. Hollywood, a little bit concerned, but I mean, he was getting targets downfield a bit last week. He just didn't convert on them. So yeah,
I
give
definitely
me
have
the last 3.
Yeah, I definitely have Kirk and Ayuk ahead of Hollywood, but yeah, Hollywood versus Knight is tough for me.
Definitely. Then one more, Evan Ingram or Gerald Everett.
Who the Chargers got again?
The
The
Chargers
Titans.
have the Titans.
Oof. I think I'd go with Ingram, but I'm basically just guessing. I have no idea how to call that one.
Yeah, it's close. It's close. Let's unpack that game. So we got the Chargers at home, 2.5-point favorites against the Titans. I think this is a great spot to buy back in on the Titans. Like that couple of bad games in a row. This is like what they needed, like going into this stage of the season. They couldn't have ridden that hot streak that they got on in October all the way through the season. They needed to have another lull so people could start doubting them again for this to start working. And they love playing on the road.
That, and I really wish we could hear the things that Mike Vrabel says about Staley. I cannot imagine how obscene and vulgar and, let's be realistic, probably like homophobic and stuff. Probably a lot of problematic language in there from Vrabel, but I can guarantee you he's saying all of it about Staley. He's talking about he's probably calling him soy boy specifically, and it is a setting where I think that the stereotype of the meathead jock pummeling the loser nerd is basically going to come forth
I'm
into
picturing
like a caricature level detail.
Like before the game, when the coaches like meet up at midfield and like dap each other up, like Vrabel's gonna like snap at Staley's groin and Staley's gonna flinch, and then like Vrabel's gonna pat him on the head twice. I don't know. That was a big thing in my high school, just getting people to flinch.
Vrabel a nut puncher.
Yeah, so something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how Vrabel handles his subjects face to face, other than Urban Meyer, who they apparently are just like on fist fighting terms
on site.
But yeah, Vrabel definitely is a guy who like talks bad about people, and like he's the kind of person who, when he's in front of a microphone, never says anything. Or rarely says anything to the effect of what he would with the microphone away from it. So the thing is too, he's right in this case to like not respect Staley and say like, oh, you weakling, we're gonna run all over you. Staley could call the defense a little differently than he does, and part of why they're so bad against the run is that they do that off coverage philosophy of like having the corners sit back 7 yards to try to spam the intermediate, and you need everybody taking up gaps, trying to hold ground once Derrick Henry gets the ball, because if you give him the space to reach any sort of significant speed, the play can be over just very quickly. Like you need to keep him from moving forward and keep him from developing that momentum, because if he gets it, it just doesn't matter how good of a tackler you are. This is a setting where Staley needs to run the defense basically the opposite of how he ever has, and if he does, he has a shot. But otherwise, if he calls the same defense that he did against the Dolphins, like Derrick Henry's going for 200, it's not a question.
No, yeah, I think the Titans' run game definitely gets back on track here, and I felt like the Chargers got like a little bit too much defensive credit for last week's game against Miami. I felt like that was a little bit maybe more on Miami, and the Titans they're built to destroy a defense like the Chargers.
Yeah, again, I think if the Chargers try to sell out against the run, they would have a shot, but I don't know if Staley has it in him to do that. I know they called a good game plan against the 49ers to keep McCaffrey contained. It's just that even McCaffrey doesn't get utilized like a hammer the way Henry is. It's like McCaffrey's got a sort of finesse kind of like he runs hard, but he's got like a sort of finesse application. Whereas to stop Henry, you have to play a lot of like one-on-one, physical football, and you have to be good at it and certainly disciplined. And it's like that alone, just the power run game approach of the Titans. So the way that the Chargers normally prepare, it might be kind of like when a otherwise uh, esteemed ACC team had to deal with the Paul Johnson Georgia Tech team that year. Like oh, you know how you guys we've been practicing for Clemson's offense basically all year. This week we got to switch it up and deal with a bunch of triple option crap, and it's like that one week you can be horrible at it, even if the second week you don't give up any points.
Mhm.
So yeah, that kind of novel, like Vrabel's approach entirely might be so novel for someone like Staley that Staley's just like illiterate on it.
Yeah, he's like, what kind of witchcraft is this? So yeah, give me the Titans here. Chigo Conquo, is he on your radar or just DFS?
He's pretty interesting. I wish I had a better sense of what the Titans think they're doing at tight end exactly, because I feel like they've also underutilized Hooper. If anything,
Yeah.
I feel like Okonkwo should be playing actual wide receiver, and they've used him on they probably have used him on more downfield routes than anybody this year. Even as this like fullback tight end. Like he had that month in a row where he had like a 30, 40 yard catch in every game, but he would only get like 3 targets in each game. And then this
Hmm.
most recent game was the first one where they said, like, what if we up his target volume? I would have liked to see them up his target volume without taking it away from Hooper, but if the other way they could make this work best is to just stop playing Hooper. Like if you give Okonkwo all of those routes, you're going to get more than if you did trying to cut in Hooper. But the way you get less than either of those scenarios is if you're kind of having the two cannibalize each other's usage. And I worry about that a little bit. But man, they really should just get a Conquo on those AJ Brown routes. He kind of looks a little bit like AJ Brown. I mean, he Okonkwo ran a 4.52 40 to Traylon Burks' 4.55, and he's like 15 pounds heavier, 13 pounds heavier than Burks. Like Okonkwo was the AJ Brown imitation that they wanted all along, which is to say, like a 230 pounder who runs a low 4.5.
I'm a big fan of his. He went to Maryland. Love Maryland football, even though they're terrible. So I'm pulling for the boy. Hope he does well, and feel good about his chances this week and moving forward. The advanced stats, Mario, to your point, are pretty impressive on him. The average yards after catch, really good. Yards per route run, insane. Like pretty much, it's all high green on his player profile over on
Yeah,
RotoWire.
at Maryland, it seemed like he was doomed to kind of be like an underneath check down kind of pass catcher or whatever. But and he has done plenty of that with the Titans. But he's taken downfield shots too. And if you're threatening at that level with him, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to threaten at every level and have each of those threats play off of each other. And if you're playing off of the Derrick Henry play action, especially, I, they really, I think, have an avenue and like an incentive to make Okonkwo become their leading pass catcher anytime Burks is not playing, and maybe even while he is.
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm officially in. You got me all riled up now. All right, we got four games left. Patriots Raiders in Vegas. Another game with split spreads. Some books have the Patriots favored by a point. Others have the Raiders favored by a point. Obviously, Patriots defense very opportunistic this past week, and their ability to get to the quarterback is scary. But their offense is a joke. So this one's tricky to figure out.
Yeah, Patriots are just such a weird team in general this year because they have that can't count them out kind of thing because of the Belichick effect mostly, and the Belichick weekly threat to come up with just like a really good game plan that blindsides the other team. Belichick can keep doing that, but you can only, polish a turd so much. There's only so much you can do to hide an offense's bad, and with as many good excuses as the Patriots offense has too. I mean, if they don't have Stevenson, uh, I know that's a situation they got themselves into, but it's still difficult to manage once they're in it. They just their receiver personnel, their usage for their pass catchers has been incoherent all for years. Actually, I should say. Um, there is a lot that they can have go wrong with their offense, and I don't mean to skip any of those scenarios, but man, the Raiders, they're so bad, and McDaniels is just completely overexposed as a head coach. So I'd be surprised, even with all the issues that the Patriots have, if they got beat in this one. But it is kind of funny to remember. I'm pretty sure Patricia went like 2-0 against Belichick as a head coach with the Lions.
Yeah, it used to be this really big narrative. Like I did some research on this actually going into my article, my picks article earlier this week, and I also said that like nothing bores me quite as much as like Belichick versus one of his former pupils. But leading up to 2018, he was like 10-2 or something, and now he's like 14-12 overall against them. So those numbers might not be fully correct, but like the point stands. Like he doesn't own them the way that he could, really take Eric Mangini to the woodshed.
Yeah, maybe those were all plants back before the league had like better counterintelligence or whatever. I think in any case though that the main story here, regardless of all the stuff going on with the Patriots, is that just the Raiders are one of the worst teams in the league and are very much a dysfunctional team in a way that can kind of undermine the talent that they do have. Of course, Devontae Adams seems unstoppable, but he's been unstoppable most weeks, and they've still
Yeah.
embarrassed themselves most weeks. So I can't really see the Patriots just besmirching themselves to that extent.
It doesn't make a ton of sense, but like I'm just enough lower on the Patriots to where I'll give it to the Raiders at home. But
I will say
I'm
if Jacobs keeps producing like he has, the Patriots lose. They do need to do something about him.
yeah, he's a stallion this year. Let's hit Bengals Bucks. We got Bengals minus 3.5 on the road against touchdown Tom Mario.
Touchdown Tom. That's an ironic name at this point. We love to see it.
Hmm.
Uh, let's see the Bengals. I do worry the slightest bit about like Todd Bowles. I think it's safe to say is in over his head as a head coach. He still is a good defensive coach. He's capable of like I don't want to say lapses in judgment, but like he can get blindsided by a game plan. He's at least though the kind of coach who adjusts and fixes it the second time around. But sorry, which is to say, I can imagine him more or less matching Zach Taylor, even this improved Zach Taylor of late. So I don't see it as an easy game for the Bengals offense or defense really. Although if Tom Brady keeps producing the way he has, then it could be an easy game for the Bengals defense too. And at that point, you definitely like them to kind of roll because even if the Tampa defense kind of stalls the Cincinnati offense, uh, as long as the defense does, as long as the Cincinnati defense does better than hold serve, I still think you dysfunction or not. Occasionally, the Bengals offense is a lot more reliable than the Tampa Bay one, and it's happened enough times this year. I think it's safe to say that the Tampa Bay issues on offense are due to the players. Like it's not just injuries, it's not just some bad luck here or there. Maybe they've had both of those. I still think that we've had too many settings where there's just no excuses for Tom Brady to fail to get certain pass catchers going more specifically. And a game like last week would be a good enough example right there. It's like Mike Evans going against no Marshawn Lattimore on the Saints, and he's got 4 targets. That's Tom Brady being unable to make throws that Tom Brady wants to make. And if he can't make the throws, if he can't, through whatever witchcraft, make possible physically these things that he can imagine, then it's just over. It's just done. There's nothing to do at that point. The story is over. So I think that's probably where we're at. And the Bengals, I will say, they still have to be careful. That defense can still cause turnovers, and even when they're good, the Bengals are a turnover-prone offense. That usually doesn't matter because they make up explosiveness to cover it and then some. But they have to be careful on the road, especially against a defense that has some pretty good personnel.
Yeah, that definitely got to be careful. I'm so bought in on the Bengals at this point. I'm so out on the Buccaneers. Like
I'm so out on the Buccaneers, yeah, more so.
yeah. So didn't mean to imply that you weren't. I think that you brought some kind of like sober analysis to the whole thing because there's definite like instinct to overreact to a team crumbling in real time and be like, oh, it's totally over. Maybe they're not that terrible, but
45, man. It's usually you are right to say it's over when this is happening 6 years ago.
mhm.
It's finally here. There are no immortal humans. There will never be an immortal human. Tom Brady has been subject to gravity finally.
About time. Oh God. Um, let's see here. All right, two night games. Commanders, Giants. Interesting little scheduling wrinkle
Yeah.
because these two teams tied 2 weeks ago. The Giants played last week and got smoked. Washington was just chilling. They're on a bye.
Yeah, Washington should be fine here. The Giants just don't have they don't have the bullets that they need on offense or defense. Particularly when Adoree Jackson got hurt, the Giants were fielding like a week 4 preseason cornerback rotation. So uh, if you're the Giants, you have to put substantial like safety allocation toward Terry McLaurin, and so you have to kind of leave the run vulnerable. And I think Brian Robinson's pretty clearly like a backup type, but against a bad run defense that's moreover not particularly trying to defend the run, like yeah, he can produce here. So Washington defense playing better, Giants offense playing worse, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think these are just two teams that are kind of heading in different directions right now, and I think the Giants it was a correction. I don't know if Washington is maybe playing a little bit above where they should be, but you know where
Easy
I stand on
schedule, yeah.
Taylor Heineke. I'm just a guy. I'm just a fan. So
Wish them luck. Yeah, it's they're going to be a wild card team that maybe takes it to the fourth quarter in their wild card game. Good for them.
yeah, that feels like the kind of career arc that he will have. Certainly did that a couple years ago against the Bucks, and then we got Rams Packers to close it out.
Ugh, stinky.
So
Um,
a week ago, we were laughing at the idea that Baker Mayfield would play snaps against the
yeah,
Raiders.
it was pretty ugly. Actually, that's the thing that I meant to bring up with the Patriots Raiders is they lost to a guy who like couldn't play quarterback. I know Mayfield made the Van Jefferson throw, and he gets credit for that.
Yeah,
It's just that scenario shouldn't have happened. Like they shouldn't have had the ball then. The Raiders being impossibly incompetent is the only reason that Mayfield got the pass attempt volume to get past the first like 20 or so passes that he threw, which were really bad. I mean, they tried that play action corner route from the tight end a couple times, and it didn't go either time. Like the Raiders were sitting on it, you could see. And then the rest of the game was pretty much just both offenses just stumbling around, going nowhere. Mayfield was throwing. Not that I'm trying to criticize him for this. Like this is to say why it's basically impossible to play quarterback with 1 day of practice. He was putting all these throws like into the dirt, off rhythm. It was ugly until the Raiders gave them 10th, 11th, 12th chances in the game, and then finally it was like, hey, we got one-on-one fade route. Don't need to practice to do that. You can do that. You can do that on the playground. No problem. So that one play is what the game came down to, and all the other you know more pertinent plays aside from that one didn't matter in the box score. Whereas almost any other game, even almost any other game against a team as stupid and bad as the Raiders, that whole scenario never happens at all. So I think the Packers kind of just choked them out over the course of an ugly, otherwise hard fought game here. But yeah, I don't think that the Rams are throwing for 150 yards here, and whether
in
they
winning.
cover, whether they cover comes down to whether Akers can get 2 touchdowns again.
I like them to cover. And that's more me saying I don't trust the Packers with more than a
Oh yeah,
touchdown right now.
Packers offense
Uh,
we have reason to believe is still not very good.
yeah, and the fact that they torch the Bears before the bye, that means little to nothing to me, because they always do that to the
Don't
Bears
care at
anyway,
all.
and the Bears defense is particularly bad this year. So like I don't think that really signals anything. So yeah, I'll take the Rams to cover this. But yeah, fantasy wise or watchability wise, Monday night. I guess last question here. How do you see the Green Bay backfield performing? How are they going to divvy up the work and so on?
I don't know. I always defended the AJ Dillon selection in the second round because I thought the Packers were committing to a vision where they would use both him and Aaron Jones, and I defended re-signing Aaron Jones. Still do. But to me, the way that the Packers have run their offense the past 2-3 years, they only needed Aaron Jones, and for this approach, actually for any offense, Aaron Jones is better. Aaron Jones is really, really good. AJ Dillon could be quite good himself and still just not particularly close to the threat from scrimmage that Aaron Jones is. Very few running backs are the kind of threat from scrimmage that Aaron Jones is. So if there's if there's between the two of them 20 carries and 8 catches to be had, then I just quite simply give Aaron Jones as much of that as I think he can handle. And
Mhm.
so the Packers, they have a little pressure to get Dylan more involved than that. That Gutekunst doesn't want people saying like, "Hey, didn't you spend a second rounder on that guy who isn't playing?" So there's always going to be pressure to keep him involved. But even as someone who thinks Dylan is good, I don't see what merit he has taking like a single rep from Jones that Jones himself could handle. So I'm not getting my hopes up for Dylan, even if he might be a bit of a pain for Jones investors in the meantime.
No, sure. I think that's a good way of kind of summing it up. Yeah, Jones is a more talented guy. Dylan certainly pretty useful as well. Wish they could kind of get that rotation
They
figured out
each
a little bit more
undermine the other.
smoothly.
They need to be running like 35 times a game to make the two of them get a fair shot. Because like Dylan needs the volume too. Like he's not going to be as good in 0 through 10 as in 15 through 20. But they don't let him get the 15 through 20,
Yeah,
so they
he's
just
he's
get the
got to
worst of everything.
tenderize. And
Yes.
and the Packers, they had the personnel to, like, as far as their pass catchers go, to where like they would have been completely justified to go that run heavy, and they
Oh
just
yeah.
SMH.
Got
Just
to do the chip. Got to do the Chip Kelly approach. Is like you get more reps for your running back depth by going up tempo and running a lot, and it'll feel like you're running a lot of pass plays anyway because you're just getting so many first downs and running so many more plays. But Lafleur just got too cute with it.
he did, and look at him now. All right, that's going to wrap things up for us here on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Again, brought to you by our friends over at No House Advantage for Mario Puig. I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.
Try RotoWire today, free for 10 days. Get our premium tools, rankings, analysis, and breaking news alerts. No credit card required. Go to rotowire.com/try.